I, Vibhuti Parekh, is today going to continue with the economic environment. First one is the structure of the economy. What is the structure of the economy? Factors such as contribution of different sectors like primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors, large, medium, small, and tiny sectors to the economy, and their linkages, integration with the world economy, etc., are important to business because these factors indicate the prospectus for different types of businesses, certain factors which affect the business, etc. For example, if an economy is highly integrated with the global economy, it will be quickly affected by developments in the global economy. Normally, as an economy develops, the share of primary sector in the GDP and employment declines, and those of the other sector increases. After a certain stage, the share of the manufacturing sectors may also decline. In most of the countries, the service sector is the largest and fastest growing sector. The services sector now contributes more than 60% of the world GDP. The developed economies are primarily service economies in the sense that service sector generates bulk of the employment and income. The contribution of service to GDP and employment is substantially high in particularly the developed economies. The growing importance of services is reflected in the international trade too. The growth rate of trade in services has been faster than that of goods. The nature of each sector has business implications. For example, although India is one of the largest producer of several agricultural products, because of the small and fragmented nature of the land holdings, efficient collection and processing of the produce becomes difficult. The land holding pattern also makes productivity improvements difficult. It also has implications for the agricultural inputs business. Next is economic policies. There are several economic policies which can have a very great impact on businesses. Important economic policies are industrial policy, trade policy, foreign exchange policy, monetary policy, fiscal policy, and foreign investment and technology policies. Some types or categories of business are favorably affected by government policies. Some are adversely affected, while it is neutral in respect of others. Similarly, an industry that falls within the priority sector in terms of the government policy may get a number of incentives and other positive support from the government, whereas those industries which are regarded as inessential may have the odds against them. Now, let us study these policies in a little bit detail. First is industrial policy. Industrial policy can even define the scope and role of different sectors like private, public, joint, and cooperative, or large, medium, small, and tiny. It may influence the location of industrial undertakings, choice of technology, scale of operation, product mix, and so on. In India, until the liberalization in 1991, the scope of foreign investment and technology was very limited. However, the new policy assured in July 1991 has wide opened all but a few industries for foreign investment, dramatically changing the business environment. The liberalization has enormously expanded the business opportunities. It has, at the same time, tremendously increased the competition, tending to make survival of the fittest the order. Next is the trade policy. The trade policy can significantly affect the fortune of firms. For example, a restrictive import policy or a policy of protecting the home industries may greatly help the import competing industries, while a liberalization of the import policy may create difficulties for such industries. Trade policy is often integrated with the industrial policy. As part of the economic liberalization and WTO compliance, India has very substantially liberalized imports. Domestic firms now face increasing competition from imports. In other words, they face a growing international competition in the domestic turf. This implies that in many cases, Indian firms which do not come up to the international standards in quality, cost, marketing, after sales services, etc., will not be able to survive in the longer run. And a firm which effectively fights foreign competitions in the home market may be provoked to think, why not compete with foreign firms in the foreign markets? Liberalization of imports facilitate global sourcing, and this could help many Indian firms to become more competitive. Our next policy is foreign exchange policy. Foreign exchange policy and the policy in respect of cross border movement of capital are important for business. The abolition or liberalization of exchange controls all around the world since the late 1970s has encouraged cross border movement of capital. For example, foreign investment and technology policy. Until the late 1980s, when the worldwide trends towards liberalization set in, foreign capital and technology were under severe restrictions in many developing and socialist or communist countries. Restriction on foreign capital and technology constraints not only the foreign firm but also the domestic firms because it may come in their way of acquiring the technology of their choice from the best source. The restrictions on foreign capital may affect the growth plan of firms, including establishment of joint ventures. India has restrictions on foreign investment by Indian companies. Huge investments in infrastructural and other vital sectors are significantly improve the environment for industrial development as in case of China. So this is the basic benefit of the foreign investment and technology policy. Then is the fiscal policy. Government strategy in respect of public expenditure and revenue can have significant impact on the business. The pattern of public expenditure may affect the development of various regions, sectors, or industries differently. Such is the case with the taxation policy. Governments often use tax incentives or disincentives to encourage or discourage certain activities. For example, when an industry suffers from recession, a reduction of taxes like excise duty or sales tax may help improve the demand. The reduction of rates of direct taxes like personal income tax and corporate tax may help increase because of the resultant increase in the disposable income, the spendings in the economy leading to an increase in demand. Governments, central as well as provincial, may help other different fiscal incentives to woo industries. Next is the monetary policy. The central bank, by its policy towards the cost and availability of credit, can significantly influence the savings, investments, and consumer spendings in the economy, depending on the conditions of the economy and the general economic policy of the government. The central bank may adopt an expansionary or contractionary or neutral monetary policy. For example, a 1 percentage point reduction in the cash reserve ratio or statutory reserve ratio will significantly increase the loanable funds with the commercial banking system. An increase in these ratios will have the opposite effect. Monetary policy may also be pressed into action to influence the exchange rate of the currency. Now, how does the general economic conditions affect the businesses? General economic conditions affect business. Economies pass through periods of boom and recession. A boom is characterized by high level of output, employment, and rising demand and prices. A recession has the opposite of these characteristics. In a region, it is significant that what it depends on. If a region depends to the significant extent on any particular industry or sector, business in that region would be significantly affected by fortunes of that industry. The economic and business prospects in major oil exporting countries depend to a very great extent on the crude oil prices. The economic condition of a region may be linked to the prices of major crops of the region. A particular economic condition may be widespread, international, or national, or may be confined to a region. The current account and balance of payments position of a country can significantly influence certain economic policies and business environment. For example, a sustained current account surplus may encourage the government to liberalize imports and capital movement. Exports and imports of a country are generally affected by a number of domestic and international economic conditions. For example, analysis of empirical data reveals that India's export performance is affected by certain important factors. They include a set of external factors, a set of internal factors, and the real exchange rate. The external factors are the rate of growth of the economies of the importing countries, the rate of growth of the world trade, the rate of change in the price level in the importing countries. The internal factors are the rate of growth of the Indian economy, the rate of change in the domestic price level. The most favorable conditions for the growth of Indian exports is the combination of the high growth rate of all the three external factors, a high growth rate with price stability for the Indian economy, and a fall in the real exchange rate for exports. In some of the above conditions, if they are satisfied and other conditions are not favorable, the export performance should be expected to be determined by the relative strengths of the favorable and unfavorable factors. The analysis of the impact of the interrelationship of the above mentioned variables on Indian exports for a period of nearly 2 decades by G.C. Da Costa has revealed the following. First, good growth in the economies of the industrial countries has been associated with good growth in India's exports. This has very pronounced in those years characterized by good growth in the world trade, sharp fall in the REX, and relative price stability in India. The second one is in some years, even when the growth in the economies of the industrial countries was low, the countries experienced good growth in the volume of exports because of the sharp decline in the RERX during certain periods. Despite modest growth in the industrial countries and in world trade, the volume of India's exports fell because of the rise in the RERX. Besides import regulation, the important factors which determine the volume of India's imports are: first, the rate of growth of the Indian economy. High rate of growth, ceteris paribus, is associated with rise in imports. The relative price of imports and increase in the imports, ceteris paribus, is associated with the fall in the relative price of the imports. From the above two factors, it can be inferred that the volume of imports tends to be very high when there is a conjecture of high rate of economic growth and a sharp fall in the relative price movement, and vice versa. There are thus a number of economic factors, many of which form a complex web which affect the business. Now, how does these economic factors affect the business? Economic factors like the nature and level of development of the economy, economic resources, size of the economy, economic system and economic policies, economic conditions, trends in the GNP growth rate and per capita income, nature of and trends in foreign trade, foreign exchange factors, domestic supply, and demand conditions are all relevant to business. The difference in the level of development and income have implications for the business. In the developing countries, particularly in the low income economies, the demand for many category of goods and services is limited because of the low levels of income. Even products which are regarded as essential in advanced economies are regarded as luxury in these countries. Like, for example, refrigerator, TV, or even electric fan. Import or production of such items may not be allowed or encouraged by the government of these countries. The price and consequently the demand for them may be affected by high taxes on them because of their categorization as luxuries. Many developing countries suffer from severe balance of payments problem. Therefore, the import policies in general are very restrictive. The number of developing countries, however, hold out very good prospects for business in future because of the three reasons, which are a steady increase in population, increase in income, growing democratization, and individual freedom. It may be noted that the economic growth rates of several developing countries, like the new industrializing countries like South Korea, Taiwan, and Hong Kong, and China, have been enviable. A number of other developing countries have also been trying to get into the fast track by reforming their economic policies. As pointed out in the section Growing Economy Power of Developing Countries, the share of the developing countries in the increase in the world income has been growing and it would continue in Future. The developed countries are characterized by high level of income and consumption and business competition. Foreign trade is more liberal in comparison with that of most of the developing countries. Import restrictions are confined by and large to export competing countries. It should be noted here that in many developing countries, the demand for several products is limited by, among other things, the absence or inadequacy of use facility characteristics. The difference in the level of development may cause the difference in the nature of demand for such products, and the difference in the nature of demand has many important implications for marketing of these products. In short, different countries and different regions within a country are characterized by dissimilar economic environment. When the economic conditions are different, the type of industries or business suitable for that different region would be different and would need different business strategies also. So, here we can say that the economic environment has a direct implication on the day to day business in any given country or region. Thank you for watching the video from Vibhuti Parekh and from Edupedia World Videos.